This video is sponsored by DistroKid. In this video, we're comparing two popular smart de-esser plugins to see which one is the best: Izotope's Velvet and Sonible's Smart de-ess. To decide, we're going to take a deeper look at each plugin and compare them across these categories with plenty of audio examples. In each category, I'm going to award a point so that by the end, we'll have a clear winner. And in case you're wondering, no, this is not sponsored by Izotope or Sonible, so this will be a 100% unbiased overview of how these two plugins compare to one another based on my own use cases so far. If you're interested in checking out either plugin, I'm going to leave links to both of them down in the description below. But let's begin by taking a look at how easy it is to detect sibilant frequencies with both plugins. And this is where they're almost identical. With Velvet, you'll press the Learn button on the Sibilance channel and then play the track so it can analyze your audio and apply corrective treatment. Similarly, with Smart de-ess, from the moment you put it on, you'll be prompted to analyze your track to create what Sonible calls a voice print of the audio. Basically, you put the plugin on, you click one button, and then you let the plugin do its thing. Let's see it in action.
Deuce high, take me on a moon ride. Maybe when the moon's right, we can just see what's here. Decide who you gonna be like. Wish it I could rewind just so I can see what's clear. Deuce high, take me on a moon ride. Maybe when the moon's right, we can just see what's here. Decide who you gonna be like. Wish it I could rewind just so I can see what's clear.
We'll discuss the results of the analysis in a moment, but in terms of just how easy it was to detect the sibilance, it was pretty much equally as effortless for both plugins. Therefore, I'm going to award them both a point in this category, making them tied to start. Now, even though Sonible and Izotope didn't sponsor this video, I still need to pay the bills and make sure that Piper over here has some food for her bowl. And if you're a musician releasing their own music, you know how hard it can be to turn a profit from your music release. Especially if you're working with a distributor who charges you per release or takes a percentage of your music earnings. And that's why I like to work with the sponsor of today's video, DistroKid. They make distributing your music onto stores and streaming platforms easy with their simple interface available on mobile and desktop. And when it comes to your music earnings, they collect and pass on 100% of your music revenue directly to you, whether it's somebody purchasing your latest single or streaming your album on repeat. Best of all, they charge you a low annual subscription fee to distribute unlimited music for the year, making them much more convenient and less expensive than the other guys. It's no wonder over 2 million artists use DistroKid globally, including yours truly. Try them out today and you can save 7% off your first year by using my link down in the description below. Now, what about the accuracy of the sibilance detection? Even though both are automatic, does one do a better job than the other? To decide, I've soloed the sibilance that was detected by each plugin and then committed each to audio so we can visually see what's the same and what's different, if anything. And before we press play, just visually speaking, we can see that both seem to have identified the same parts of phrases or words as sibilants. So without listening to any audio, it seems as though they're detecting the same problems. But to be sure, let's play each sibilance track in solo mode so we can hear if they're audibly the same or if there are differences between them. Now, this is where you can hear a significant difference in their detection. Velvet is focused on detecting sibilance within the higher frequencies only and isolating it onto its sibilance channel for treatment. Smart de-ess, on the other hand, detects it across the entire frequency spectrum, providing much more comprehensive detection. That's why you can hear it catching more than just high frequency information, with the entire sibilant phrase being captured from start to finish in comparison to Velvet. Therefore, if we have to decide between which of these two gets a point for detection accuracy, I'm going to give it to Smart de-ess, which brings the score up to 2-1 in favor of Smart de-ess. Now that we know how accurately they detect sibilance, let's now evaluate the sound quality of their treatment. And this is another area where they greatly differ in their approach, so we should quickly talk about that before we take a listen. Smart de-ess uses spectral processing. Think of this as very high resolution multi-band processing, where the frequency spectrum is divided into thousands of bands, and each one can be reduced separately. Velvet, on the other hand, relies on a dynamic EQ, providing up to 6 bands for you to manipulate. This difference really boils down to the granularity of the processing of each plugin. But does this difference in processing methods actually translate to a noticeable difference in sound quality? To find out, I've already got both plugins set up to treat the sibilance on this track, and I've disabled their other features for now. Let's play them back to back to evaluate how they sound.
Deuce high, take me on a moon ride. Maybe when the moon's right, we can just see what's here. Decide who you gonna be like. Wish it I could rewind just so I can see what's clear. Deuce high, take me on a moon ride. Maybe when the moon's right, we can just see what's here. Decide who you gonna be like. Wish it I could rewind just so I can see what's clear. Deuce high, take me on a moon ride. Maybe when the moon's right, we can just see what's here. Decide who you gonna be like. Wish that I could rewind just so I can see what's clear.
Now, to be fair, they aren't set exactly the same because they can't be. Both work slightly differently and offer different levels of controls that we're going to discuss in the next section, which ultimately require different settings to get it roughly where I want for each. And in this case, I had to push Velvet harder in order to achieve a result closer to what I wanted with 5 dynamic bands, including 3 that I manually created, with a few excessive reductions around 10 dB or more. And even with this much treatment, there's still some harshness. I feel as though I'm not quite fixing the sibilance issue as effectively as I'd like. Perhaps with a different example, the result would be different, but I find that Smart de-ess overall sounds better. It sounds smoother, and it's correcting that sibilance much more effectively, and with arguably less treatment in comparison to what I did on Velvet. As you can see, I have the maximum gain reduction capped at -7 dB in this case. Now, of course, Velvet's processing still sounds better than no treatment at all, but between the two of them, I'm going to award a point for sound quality to Smart de-ess, bringing the score to 3-1 in its favor. Now that we know how each plugin sounds after being dialed in to effectively treat sibilance, let's now explore their controls and interfaces. We're going to focus on the sibilance related settings for now, but we'll discuss the other settings related to the extra features in the following section. But let's start with what these two plugins have in common. Both plugins let you set a maximum gain reduction amount for the correction applied. You could solo the sibilance on both so you can hear exactly what you're detecting and affecting with processing, as I showed you in the previous section. Both plugins also have a delta function, or the difference signal as it's called on Smart de-ess, which lets you hear the isolated changes being made by the processing. And they each let you blend your dry and wet signals via the mix setting. And this is where their similarities end. So now let's explore their differences and unique strengths when it comes to sibilance control. Visually speaking, Velvet displays the frequency spectrum of the sibilant audio behind the EQ curve. Within Velvet's dynamic EQ, you have the ability to add or edit bands, adjust their shape, frequency, and Q, and then determine how each band works to reduce sibilance that passes the global threshold setting. What's cool is you can switch from the default downward mode into the upward expansion mode, which dynamically adds to the sibilance channel instead of reducing it. That effectively means that Velvet is not only a de-esser, but can also function as a re-esser as well. Not going to lie, it's not a feature I imagine I'd use often, but it could come in handy in certain mixed troubleshooting situations. Another interesting setting is the amount, which scales the intensity of the settings, essentially exaggerating or reducing the impact of the settings you've dialed in. Moving over to Smart de-ess, you're going to find that its features are much more focused on its intelligent spectral processing, which are very different from Velvet's dynamic EQ-based settings. First, Smart de-ess provides a lot more visual feedback than Velvet in 4 key areas. At the top part of the interface is a spectrogram, which shows the frequency spectrum of your track. The highlighted sections show where sibilants or plosives were processed by the plugin. Below that is the input and output signal and gain reduction display, which shows the waveform of our sound and how it's being affected. The parts highlighted in green show the sibilants being processed, while the parts highlighted in blue show the plosives being processed. You can also see how much gain reduction is being applied to the sibilant and plosive parts above the waveform. The spectral shaping panel in the top right shows you exactly what corresponding sibilant and plosive frequencies are being adjusted dynamically in real time. And in the bottom right of the interface, you have an output section that displays corresponding gain reduction values, as well as peak and RMS levels. In terms of actual control, Smart de-ess offers a lot of flexibility with its simplified parameters. While it has a default full range mode for automatic detection, you can switch into split band if you need to manually define sibilant or plosive ranges, making it more targeted. For actual sibilance treatment, Smart de-ess keeps it simple with just 3 main controls: suppression, which adjusts the amount of reduction applied; color, which tunes the sibilant character with soft, balanced, and sharp options, helping to tame harshness or revive dullness; and shaping, which controls the amount of spectral shaping towards your chosen color, with higher values making sibilant sounds more consistent or evened out. Unlike Velvet, we can also control the speed of the reaction to problems with 3 potential settings. And for even more control, Smart de-ess has a built-in output gain to adjust levels after processing. While Velvet provides focused surgical tools and the ability to double as a re-esser, it lacks the deeper insights and streamlined controls that Smart de-ess offers. Because of that, I'm giving the point to Smart de-ess for the controls and interface category, bringing their score up to 4-1. But beyond de-essing, both plugins offer a few extra features that make them much more useful than your typical de-esser plugin. Looking at Smart de-ess first, its content-aware detection allows it to detect and treat other problematic phonemes, such as plosives, right alongside sibilants. In the past, I used to have to rely on another plugin to fix excessive plosives, but with Smart de-ess, I could tackle them right alongside sibilants in one clean package. Let me play this vocal and isolate the plosives and enable their treatment so you can hear exactly what I mean.
Deuce high, take me on a moon ride. Maybe when the moon's right, we can just see what's here. Decide who you gonna be like. Wish that I could rewind just so I can see what's clear. Deuce high, take me on a moon ride. Maybe when the moon's right, we can just see what's here. Decide who you gonna be like. Wish that I could rewind just so I can see what's clear.
But unfortunately, this is where Smart de-ess's extra features end. So let's take a look at Velvet in comparison. As I mentioned earlier, Velvet separates the sibilance from your track. And while doing so, it also separates the body and character of the sound onto the tonal channel. For example, this is what the tonal channel sounds like on its own.
Deuce high, take me on a moon ride. Maybe when the moon's right, we can just see what's here. Decide who you gonna be like. Wish that I could rewind just so I can see what's clear.
But Velvet's tonal channel goes beyond accurately separating the vocal's body. Once separating, you can use Velvet's spectral shaping capabilities through its lift and tame controls. With the lift setting, Velvet will add clarity and presence by boosting frequencies based on the target profile we've chosen, while the tame setting will reduce resonances and harshness by cutting frequencies that deviate from the target. You can also adjust how much processing is applied across the low, mid, and high frequencies specifically. I've already made some adjustments to these settings so you can hear exactly how it affects the sound, so let's check it out.
Deuce high, take me on a moon ride. Maybe when the moon's right, we can just see what's here. Decide who you gonna be like. Wish that I could rewind just so I can see what's clear. Past tense, put you on a scale, you know you past 10. Claiming that you good but okay. I play, party and poppin', won't stop and dapping your escape.
In this case, you can hear how the tonal shaper is cleaning up some of that low-end muddiness that's on this vocal and making it sound more high-end at the same time. Moving on, Velvet also has a built-in declicker, which can be used to clean up vocal artifacts like lip smacks and tongue clicks. This is another separate process that I often use when mixing, so it's really convenient to have it built right into this plugin as well. We can isolate and audition the clicks by pressing the ear icon like so. We can then detect more clicks and adjust how much corrective processing is applied by dialing up the amount slider, and we can see how many clicks were detected and repaired at the bottom. So between Velvet and Smart de-ess, which one is going to get the point in the extra features category? Dealing with plosives and mouth clicks are both issues that I treat in every mix that I do, and as you can tell, each plugin solves one of those issues. But because Velvet also offers the benefit of spectral shaping, I'm going to award it a point in this case. That brings the score up to 4-2 in favor of Smart de-ess, but with Velvet pushing to make a comeback in these final two categories. So now let's talk about CPU performance and system stability, and there's a bit of a curveball here. To start, I'm going to put the minimum system requirements for each plugin on screen right now, which are fairly comparable. Unfortunately for me, however, there's a glitch with Velvet and Pro Tools specifically that prevents it from working as intended. When I press the Learn button, Velvet seems to analyze the audio and visually displays where sibilance is detected in the sibilance band. However, it doesn't automatically apply any treatment, which is what it's supposed to do. I could still manually dial in my settings, of course, which is what I've been doing when using it, but without automatic detection and treatment, it kind of defeats the whole purpose of this plugin being smart. That being said, Velvet's Learn feature does work properly in my version of Ableton as you saw earlier, which is why I'm doing this demonstration there instead of on Pro Tools. Glitches aside, in terms of actual performance, Smart de-ess has run smoothly for me without any hiccups whatsoever, even when running multiple instances across multiple tracks in a single session. In comparison, Velvet has repeatedly caused CPU overloads, even on my relatively powerful M3 Max MacBook, which is fully spec'd out. Truthfully, I'm not an expert in performance, this has just been my experience so far. For me, it either works right out of the box or it doesn't, and unfortunately, Velvet has not been working as effectively as I'd like. That being said, I have made Izotope aware of this issue, and they've confirmed that they're working on a fix. But because of the current stability and performance issues that I've had with Velvet and Pro Tools, and how smoothly Smart de-ess has run in comparison, I'm going to award this point to Smart de-ess, which now makes the score 5-2. We're going to do a final comparison with all features engaged in just a moment, but let's talk about the final category here, which is price. And while both companies often have sales at regular intervals, I'm only going to focus on the regular price of each plugin for the sake of comparison. And today in 2025, when this video goes live, Smart de-ess is regularly priced at $129 USD, while Izotope's Velvet is regularly priced at $49 USD. Velvet is clearly much more affordable at full price, which is why I'm going to award it a point in this category. category. However, there are a few trade-offs worth considering with that lower price, mainly discussed in the differences section of the controls and interface part of this video. Now, before we jump into the final verdict, I know you're probably wondering how each of these plugins sound in comparison to one another when all their unique features are engaged. You've heard them both after de-essing, but what about after treating plosives with Smart de-ess, or declicking and spectral shaping with Velvet? Just keep in mind that with these different features engaged, this is no longer going to be an apples to apples sound quality comparison, but I do still think it's an important part of this comparison, so let's quickly hear the difference between them.
Deuce high, take me on a moon ride. Maybe when the moon's right, we can just see what's here. Decide who you gonna be like. Wish that I could rewind just so I can see what's clear. Past tense, put you on a scale, you know you past 10. Claiming that you good but okay. I'll play, party and poppin', won't stop and dapping your escape. Deuce high, take me on a moon ride. Maybe when the moon's right, we can just see what's here. Decide who you gonna be like. Wish that I could rewind just so I can see what's clear. Past tense, put you on a scale, you know you past 10. Claiming that you good but okay. I'll play, party and poppin', won't stop and dapping your escape. Deuce high, take me on a moon ride. Maybe when the moon's right, we can just see what's here. Decide who you gonna be like. Wish that I could rewind just so I can see what's clear. Past tense, put you on a scale, you know you past 10. Claiming that you good but okay. I'll play, party and poppin', won't stop and dapping your escape.
As you can hear, both are tackling different issues alongside de-essing and shaping the sound in their own distinct ways. Each one still has issues, I'd say, since I exclusively relied on the plugin to fix the problems in this case. For example, I could still hear a few plosives poking out at times despite treating them with Smart de-ess. Similarly, Velvet still has a harsh edginess to it during some moments despite significant de-essing. It also suffers from those plosive issues that were left untreated since Velvet doesn't address those issues specifically. But which sound do you prefer in this case? Feel free to share your preference down in the comments below. But if you've been keeping track, we now have a final score of 5-3 in favor of Smart de-ess. Smart de-ess earned a point in the detection accuracy, sound quality, controls and interface, and CPU performance categories, while Velvet earned a point in the extra features and price categories. Both plugins earned a point in the detecting sibilance category. And even though based on this scoring system alone, Smart de-ess is the winner, I really think that you can't go wrong with either one of these plugins. Both would be major upgrades over a standard manual de-esser, offering more accurate detection, transparent sounding results, and bonus tools that could streamline your workflow beyond de-essing. The truth is, I reach for both of them in different situations because of the unique differences between them. But what do you think? Have you tried either of these plugins out? And if so, do you have a preference between them? I want to hear your opinions down in the comments below so you can help me and your fellow mixers out there. And since we're talking about Sonible and Izotope, I'm going to leave a few other videos on screen looking at some of their other plugins that are worth checking out. If you got value out of the video, please give it a like so we can reach more people. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing so you can see more mixing content like this in the future. I appreciate y'all for watching and look forward to helping y'all again soon. Peace.